Hi, second grade. Welcome to another Wit and Wisdom lesson with Mrs. Jones. Today we are doing Module 4, Lesson 29. Wow, we're so far. Let's go ahead and get started. So I want you to take 1 minute to notice and wonder about this piece of art. So just noticing and wondering. 1 minute, go. Okay. So go ahead and tell me, or you can choose to tell an adult, family member, brother, or sister, one thing that you've noticed and one thing that you wonder about this. Okay. So a couple things that I noticed right away was that it looks like this is food. It looks like I see some cheese. Not quite sure what this food is. So that would be my wonder. What is this food? Okay, let's find out. So we're not sure what this food is. Maybe you know. What ingredients did this artist include? What kind of ingredients do you see? What did the artist use to make this food? So some of the ingredients I noticed is that there's some cheese, looks like there's some meat, there's something white up here, I'm not quite sure, maybe an egg, some tomatoes, some bread. So maybe it's kind of like a sandwich. Let's find out some more. Does this food look real to you? Show me a thumbs up. Yeah, this looks pretty real, Miss Jones. Miss Jones, gotta be kidding me. That doesn't look real at all. Show me. Well, to me, it does not look real. The lettuce looks really dark and real slimy. Ugh. This bread looks heavy and like it wouldn't taste good. And this cheese is real bright. It looks really fake. So this is actually a picture of a sculpture, and the person who made this sculpture is called Claes Oldenburg. A sculpture is something that you use with like clay or with Play-Doh or something else that you can mold and you can put together. So I got ahead of myself. A sculpture is a work of art. You can hold it in your hands. You can walk around it. And the name of this sculpture is Two Cheeseburgers with Everything. So my question is answered. Two cheeseburgers with everything. So this is not something that we can hang on our walls. Like you see, I have a picture hanging behind me. A sculpture is something that you can hold or you can walk around. And this arrow flew in. This is our secret word. We're going to hear it a lot on this Google form. Sculpture is our secret word. So actually, this sculptor has a very famous sculpture in Minneapolis, the cherry on the spoon. He made this sculpture. So it's going back to saying, oh, it's a piece of art. We can walk around it and we can see it. This is a really big sculpture, so we can't hold it in our hands. But I thought that was really fun to include because we live in Minneapolis. So kind of bringing it back, why do you think that the artist decided to make these cheeseburgers bigger than they are? Think on that. I'm going to give you about 15 seconds to think, and we'll see if our answers match. Why did the artist decide to make these cheeseburgers bigger than what they really are? 15 seconds. So as I started to think about this question, some of my answers were because it makes it easier to see. Cheeseburgers by themselves are pretty small, so by making it bigger, it makes it easier for everyone to see. Making it bigger makes this a little bit more ugly and gross, a little bit more interesting. Maybe he made them really bigger to think about how gross it is to eat that much food. Whoa, could you imagine eating that much food? Ugh. How do you think the sculpture would feel if you touched it? Ooh, that's an interesting question. Think about how it would feel on those fingertips as you were to touch it. Maybe about 10 seconds. So as I started thinking about this, I started looking at the sculpture itself, and if I actually were to touch it, oh, there's that sculpture word again, our secret word. If I were to touch this sculpture, I know it would be hard because it would be made of clay. I think it would be bumpy because looking at this bun here and the lettuce, it looks like there's a lot of bumps there. But there's also parts that are smooth, kind of like the cheese. So now we're going to start thinking about how this sculpture is the same or different to actual real cheeseburgers. So the first thing we're going to think about is, how is the sculpture the same or similar to real actual cheeseburgers? I'm going to give you about 20 seconds to think about that. We'll come back together and talk about it. How is this the same as real cheeseburgers? Go. So when I started to think about what parts of this art are the same to real cheeseburgers, I mean, the sculpture and real cheeseburgers both have toppings. You could get cheeseburgers with cheese and lettuce and ketchup and maybe mayonnaise. I'm not quite sure what that is. Cheeseburgers are pretty messy to eat, and they're pretty messy looking in real life. And the sculpture is messy. We see some cheese dripping down here. The lettuce is sagging down. It looks like the toppings are kind of sliding off. So those were the ways that I thought that this was similar to cheeseburgers. If you had something similar to my answers, say, me too, Mrs. Jones. Okay, and how is this sculpture, there's our clue word, our secret word again, different than cheeseburgers? I'm going to give you about 20 seconds to think about how this is actually different than real cheeseburgers. Go. Let's see if our answers match. So I started to think about how this sculpture would be different than cheeseburgers. I know that the sculpture, because it's made out of clay, would be cold and it would be hard. In real life, cheeseburgers are warm and soft. In this sculpture, the bun looks like a pancake, and this lettuce looks real slimy. It looks gross. I would not want to eat it. But in real life, even though cheeseburgers look messy, they actually look pretty yummy because the lettuce is a lot fresher and crispier, and I just would want to eat them. And the buns are a little bit more raised. And that is it for our lesson today. Thank you so much for paying attention. You all are rock stars. You're doing so great. So don't forget our secret word. We said it so many times in this lesson. Go ahead and fill out that Google form. Bye, second grade.